Today we're exploring something simple and radical, sitting in a circle and truly listening.
And if that sounds ordinary, stay with us. It's also how classrooms calm down, how prisons heal, and how neighbors remember their neighbors.
You know, I was born and raised in New York. And I say New York, it was a kind of New York that was rough, but wasn't dangerous in ways that it would become, and then wasn't gentrified in ways that responded to the danger. It was a mess. It was exciting and sketchy and magical and intimate and loud and honest. And I was awkward and shy and overweight and really gravitated towards the arts and specifically being on stage and acting in plays and creating plays and things. And I guess I found for myself that inhabiting a character in a story kind of felt to be the place I was most seen and accepted and comfortable. Something about the magic of the lights going down and everybody sort of agreeing that we're all going to focus on this one experience was leveling and unifying and affirming somehow. The common and emergent story that we all could bear witness to in real time was incredibly compelling to be part of. My daughter was going to a school during the time of the sort of Rodney King riots, the aftermath of the LA riots, that really affected all of Los Angeles, but had a profound effect on schools, public schools. And the school that she was in really was not quite explosive, but seemed to be going in that direction. There was so much tension and so much unspoken anger and suspicion and confusion. And as concerned parents, I was the president of the governing board. We realized that we needed some kind of intervention to save this community. Heard there was a practice at a couple of schools in the area of this thing called council that was going on, and it seemed to be working on school campuses. So we investigated. We brought this practice first to the parents, which was transformative immediately and amazing. We brought the teachers in, and eventually it trickled into the classrooms. And the impact of asking folks to set aside all the drama and all the sort of ideas and listen beyond judgments just had this unbelievable calming and healing effect. And the school turned itself around. Within 6 months, it was a beautiful community that was thriving. And I was just amazed that this practice of, telling a story, coming together and sharing could have this kind of effect. I did some investigating. The Ojai Foundation was the place that had really committed to develop this practice. Originally, Joan Halifax had found her way there to be the executive director and had brought a succession of extraordinary teachers from a number of wisdom traditions to this place as a kind of a laboratory.
Our guest is Jared Seide of Beyond Us and Them. He's devoted his life to counsel, creating spaces where stories are heard without judgment.
Counsel shows up everywhere. Schools, reentry circles, police precincts, living rooms. It's how communities move from anxiety to belonging.
On the show, Jared talks about what happens when we put down our defenses and pick up our attention.
And why that shift, one voice at a time, is taking action, the third tenet of Zen Peacemakers.
You'll hear how this practice took root from LA classrooms to Rwanda to yard programs behind prison walls.
And how officers, teachers, and folks coming home say it changed their health, their work, and their lives.
This isn't an interview. Think of it as a guided journey, stories, moments, and a practice you can try today.
All right, everyone, let's circle up. This is Peacemakers Podcast.
The word council itself is derived from a Latin word, concilium, which was used by Benjamin Franklin because he was familiar with Latin. But he was invited to observe the Haudenosaunee folks in the Longhouse practicing what they had referred to in different sort of ways and labeled it council because that's a word that he knew. And it has stuck, but it is, an approximation. The word concilium means a gathering of people. And at its core, that's what counsel is. So, it's a word that is familiar, but it has come to encompass so many ways of being together, coming together in a good way, in a circle. Ibiraramo was a word that we realized as we were in Rwanda had been used when the elders would come together and speak of stories of the past around a big vat of this banana beer that they would each take turns sipping from a big straw. That was their center. I'm sorry, I don't have a taste for the banana beer from Rwanda, but they did this. And some of the folks we work with said, oh, this is Ibiraramo. This is what we used to practice. It's called Fambul Talk in Sierra Leone, or Dare. It's called Ho'oponopono in Polynesian traditions, Loya Jirga, Diwan in Islamic tradition, Ma'agal Hakshava is a Hebrew tradition that is very similar. The Quakers used a version of this with devout listening that was part of the introduction of many during the Civil Rights era, including Joan Halifax, to what it meant to sit together in this way. So there have been many names for many practices that approximate this. And so while I went to work there and learned the practice, I became coordinator and then director of this council initiative. We started something called the Center for Council that would be an outcropping and eventually an offshoot of the Ojai Foundation. It helped us grow into something that became Beyond Us and Them, which is an independent nonprofit organization that serves a wide range of folks in a variety of organizations and institutions, from system-impacted folks to first responders, law enforcement, other organizations, and policymakers, to individuals in learning the practice of counsel and integrating it into their lives. Many of us have been touched so deeply and personally by watching dear ones turn away from dysregulation and overwhelm towards community and connection. And that's kind of what we do. That's the business we're in. Everyone needs to feel seen and connected and valued. I think we understand now from science as well as from tradition that humans are hardwired for social connection. The Surgeon General of the United States, previous Surgeon General, released an advisory that we are suffering profoundly, not just emotionally or mentally, but physically, from the lack of being connected with others. Counsel provides a structure of belonging that can become a reliable part of the culture of an organization, a family, an institution. These are opportunities that we recognized because we realized that our fast-paced life really had left no room to connect with others, to feel that our voice was valued and seen. So as an organization, we work in schools and prisons, law enforcement agencies, tech firms, manufacturing, finance, to make sure that there is some place in one's life where we can feel truly seen and connected and valued, and recognize that the way of life that we have chosen often leads to a kind of contraction, this sympathetic kind of overload where we find ourselves really unable to function well because we are fearful, because we are stressed, because we feel a great deal overwhelmed. And the result is that we're not able to reason and connect and hold abstract thought. And in order for us to communicate well and build relationships, we need a way to recover that parasympathetic tone individually and then have a space in which collectively we can settle down and make space for one another to show up and to be seen. And we have found a way through the practice of counsel and the programs that we create to really integrate this into life in a school, life in a prison, life in a police precinct, life in a tech firm. And we're really lucky and blessed to have connected with so many individuals who come back and work with us and work for us to weave these programs into the world after they've done their stint and served their time. They're skillful. They're agents of change. They're healed people who heal people, which is the sort of the converse of hurt people who hurt people. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to support. And as we come back to support the programs that we seed in agencies around the country, having this practice in the lives of law enforcement officers is an extraordinary thing. The sort of dirty secret in law enforcement is that folks don't survive typically beyond retirement for more than 2 or 3 years. Average life expectancy is 20 plus years less than other occupations. They are dying in their 50s after putting in 20, 30 years. They're dying at 58, 59 of stress-related illnesses. These are untreated, unmitigated stress that they have sustained through their careers. And many of the folks who are in these counsel circles speak of, flirtation with suicidality, with really maladaptive responses. They have weapons, and the weapons come out, and the note is written, and they're ready to take their lives. And obviously, there are many professions that are stressful. Being incarcerated is stressful. All of us live with stress. But our work with police officers in particular has really been mind-blowing, because folks really report that these practices that are in their lives now have saved their lives in very, very specific ways. And I'm so grateful to be able to be part of supporting the emergence of a practice that are having such a direct impact on their health, on their well-being. And it happens in all different sectors. That's just one example. And the more we are taught by and sensitive to and impacted by and penetrated by the teachings of counsel, the better we become, the more skillful we become, the stronger the circle becomes. And I think learning counsel and practicing counsel and integrating counsel can be a really powerful way to impact the world. But it doesn't just happen, because we want it to happen. It takes some doing, and there are structures that need to be addressed and dismantled. There's systems of oppression and exclusion and racism that need to be broken down. And those of us who are called to do this have a really valuable, skillful means in counsel if we learn it, implement it, and can bring it with us into these systems to make them more humane and compassionate. And then, of course, in the end, the folks who participate in this work, the officers who are involved with our POWER program for law enforcement, peace officer, wellness, empathy, and resilience, POWER, ask for more. Can we do this every year? This should be longer. 3 months is not enough. We need this all the time. And they become the greatest ambassadors. I think who we are as an organization is really a resource to train people to integrate this practice. And so I'm glad that we have been able to touch organizations in this way. We've trained 150, 160 organizations in the area to implement counsel into the lives of their teams, their boards, their staff. And so, we're glad to know that this practice is alive inside the organizations and certainly in the schools as a resource. When teachers are able to recognize that in this day something is going on that really requires a different kind of methodology here, let's do counsel, and they have the ability to shift into counsel because they recognize something is happening and the kids are really needing that space, that's an option that exists on a school campus. And, the organization itself now is responding to the need by training up educators in schools, law enforcement, and other first responders so that their teams have access to this. We go into prisons throughout the state from top to bottom. 30-something prisons have counsel programs, so incarcerated folks are regularly showing up. And then, of course, in reentry, as they come home and try to figure out, how to start their lives again, we have the Los Angeles Reentry Collaborative that gives them access to counsel and other services to build community when they come home. Those of us who've been doing this for a while realize the incredible importance and waking up from this illusion of disconnection and realizing that we are critically in need of practices that remind us of how profoundly interconnected we are and what it means. A couple of years back, I went back to Ironwood Prison and got to walk into a room with a bunch of guys, incarcerated folks who were doing counsel, and invited me in and went through a beautiful counsel. And at the end, I was asking questions. Where did you learn this? And tell me about it. And they said, well, we learned it. And it turned out that they had learned it from guys who had learned it from guys who had learned it from guys who we had taught. So it had gone down 4 generations. The people we originally taught, I think every one of them in that group, 25 of them, received parole, came home. A couple of them are on our staff now. They're doing great. They have families. They've bought homes. They've done amazing things with their lives. But the legacy that created at that particular prison in Blythe, California, has been that folks are practicing actively this work because it works and because they feel so nourished by it and they feel empowered, and they will become agents of change. They will come out and continue this work of healing. And that's what's so incredibly inspiring and exciting about it.
Hey everyone, this is Jim. Let me just jump in here a moment. Before starting the Zen Peacemakers, Bernie Glassman was the head monk of the Zen Center of Los Angeles. Bernie would return to ZCLA and give talks on his bearing witness retreats to Auschwitz and Birkenau. It was here that Jared and Bernie began collaborating on bringing council practice into the bearing witness retreats. I just wanted to give you a little context for this chapter of the podcast. Okay, let's jump back in.
Bernie was in my life starting in 2010, 2011 or so, when he would come and speak of some of the bearing witness retreats. It was really compelling, and following him to Auschwitz and then Rwanda and Pine Ridge and Bosnia and other places has been really one of the most meaningful experiences in my trajectory, for sure. There were conversations that emerged regarding the essential practice, not just of the three tenets, but of counsel during bearing witness retreats. And I think that Bernie was grappling with how to really ground this practice in a good way, not only for the benefit of the retreat, but as folks leave these retreats, how this experience can be something that is sustaining, that is nourishing in their lives. So for a number of years there, we were doing pretty intense workshops in Krakow before and after the 5 days or the 3 or 4 days in Auschwitz. And it really created a community of folks that not only were offering to facilitate the councils at the bearing witness retreats, but that really understood the impact of a practice that would enable individuals to take the three tenets into their lives, into their families, into their workplace, and sustain it in a good way. You know, the arc of the bearing witness retreat is so beautiful and sometimes surprising. I think what's important is to be able to hold a space in a good way such that folks can come in with everything that is arising for them. We have had a number of experiences of descendants of folks who worked in the camps, guards who were there along with survivors, and they each carried generational trauma, some of which is appearing for the first time in dreams and other experiences as they walk the grounds in Auschwitz and have experiences. And the trajectory we have seen from folks who had such a difficult time sitting with one another to softening and healing has been extraordinarily moving. I'm reminded of a couple of situations where, in those moments of descendants of very different experiences, remind me of things that I've seen in prisons where you have folks who have very deep generational issues. And then in Rwanda, of course, we had similar situations with Hutu and Tutsi folks who were coming together for the first time. The instance I'm thinking of in Rwanda involved a gentleman who had known someone else in the circle prior to the genocide, a Hutu gentleman who spoke of what his experience was, being sort of enraptured in this moment and becoming violent and causing mortal damage. And the survivor, who had such violence visited upon her, sitting in the circle with the support of really deep and grounded compassion, being able to say, I'm going to stay in the circle and listen to you. And no, I'm not ready to forgive you, but I will stay in the circle because the circle is strong. And so in several rounds, we got to witness someone really begging for forgiveness from another person in the circle who was able to sit and not offer forgiveness, but the circle could hold that this is a process that will unfold over time. And a willingness to come back and listen further so that healing can unfold. The 5 days in Auschwitz are not intended to repair the damage of the Holocaust, for goodness sakes. It's to begin a dialogue and to investigate what it means to find one's ground and soften one's heart. Council is not a place you go to fix a problem. The Bearing Witness Retreat is a profound life-changing experience, and life is full of opportunities to integrate these practices, not just conceptually, not just the three tenets as an idea, but practically and in an embodied and enacted way. And council is a great way to do that in one's life, in one's work, with one's family, etc. Council is not a solution. Council is a practice in which new opportunities emerge that can be beneficial, and that's a beautiful thing to see. And so I'm a big fan of, becoming more skillful and learning these practices. I think we only learn by trying But, there's so much more to learn, and there's so much more curriculum. There are a couple of books that folks can read. There's, Where Compassion Begins, which is the book that we use that supports all of our trainings. There's The Way of Counsel, and there are some wonderful teachers of the practice that are available. I would encourage folks who are curious to seek out opportunities to learn more about the practice. I've seen folks who are in a very different spot in a prison they never expect to step out of, become completely different people. I've seen law enforcement officers who are, really addicted to violence and, ways to vent, find a way to bring profound compassion to the work they do. I've seen some real beautiful growth.
I keep coming back to this. Everyone needs to feel seen and valued, and counsel makes room for both.
And the ripple is practical. Less stress, more connection, wiser choices right from where we live.
Thanks for spending time with us on the Peacemakers Podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and consider supporting Zen Peacemakers by becoming a paying subscriber or member.
Your support keeps these conversations and this community alive. Learn more at our website, www.zenpeacemakers.org.
We'll be back with a new episode in 2 weeks.
See you then.
The Peacemakers Podcast is a production of Zen Peacemakers, an international organization whose mission is to realize our oneness and relieve suffering through contemplative social action. You can find this podcast and more at www.zenpeacemakers.org and go to our media library.